My experience was very different than yours, living in a country like Canada. But we all have the places where we suffer. Doesn't matter where we are in the world. And I remember when I was married, I went, because I was thinking last night, what does Yom Kippur mean to me? And what came back to me was going to the synagogue when I was first married. My parents never took us to synagogue. My father fought in the Second World War. He wanted nothing to do with God when he came back. He was very angry. I don't know what he saw. He never spoke about it. But the Holocaust was very real in our lives. So not having gone to synagogue, I really didn't know anything about what happened in shul or anything about Yom Kippur. But when I got married, my husband's family went. We went to the Shar Shamayim, and it was a fashion show. The women were separated from the men, but I remember sitting there with a hunger, such a thirst to know what was going on. I'd look at her reading the Siddur, and I would try to follow along. And I remember hearing Kol Nidre for the first time, and Avinu Malkeinu for the first time, and it absolutely pierced my heart. I knew I was missing something, and I was sitting there in the midst of all these people, and I just never felt like I fit in. And last week I was watching a video on Netflix called Steal a Pencil for Me. And it was a family from Holland, a married couple. And they told their story. They wrote a book. And they told their story about how they had survived the Holocaust. And they were very much in love. And after Bergen-Belsen, they found each other again. And they got married, and now he was 92 and she was 82, and they are talking about their story. And at one point I saw him sitting with his granddaughter, and she was practicing her Torah portion for her bat mitzvah, and he was so proud of her. And the family would all meet. They had 3 children, and the family would all meet at Pesach, and it didn't matter what he went through in the Holocaust, he never forgot God. He didn't abandon his God like my father did. And he sat there with his granddaughter, and he put his 2 hands on her head, and he gave the prayer. He said the prayer, the blessing for her. Yismech Elohim ke Rivka Rechel Sarah Rivka Rechel v'Leah. And then he said the Aaronic benediction. And I thought, that young girl has no idea what a blessing it is that she's receiving, because I had never received that kind of blessing growing up. And when I look back at my life now, I know that God was speaking to me from a very early age, but I was always too busy to listen. I had taken my daughters to synagogue. We lived in Dollard. We went to the temple, and I was a large part of the temple. I was a president of the women's group, and I helped them start a children's school there. But my husband didn't want to come to this shul because he belonged to the Shar Shamayim, so we were never together in our religious life, so to speak. And I remember always feeling, no matter where I was, that I was always outside the community, it felt. Didn't matter where I go, I never felt like I belonged. And then something wonderful happened when this synagogue was started. And it was a very important turning point in my own life when 10 years ago, the rabbi laid his hand on my head, the way the grandfather did on that young girl. And I had what's called smicha. And it was an acknowledgement of a calling that I know that God gave me. I think of myself as, there's a song that we sing, Ein od milvado, and it says, Ani avda, I am his servant. And that special blessing, that smicha, was really a change. For the first time that I really sensed that I found where I belonged, that I was no longer an outsider. For me, Yom Kippur isn't translated, as you say, Rabbi, it's not a day of atonement, it's a day of covering. And that day, I truly felt covered. When I was growing up, I never felt protected or covered by my family, by my parents. They were never there. So now, I have a covering. And I can look back at the days when I didn't have a community, knowing that today, I have a community. And even though we don't see each other very much, I know where we belong. And I know that I belong here, and I'm honored to be that servant. And I can say, Ani avda. Not a slave, but a servant. And who's willing to choose to follow in the footsteps of our forefathers. I remember when you said, Miriam, we have Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and Miriam. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and me. And I get to follow in the footsteps of our forefathers. I know what his commandments are. And as I examine my soul today on Yom Kippur, I was sitting this morning and I was sensing my own body, because we don't always feel the anxiety that we carry within. And I sat there with a complete and total sense of peace. And this is something that no one can give to us except our great protector, our Adonai Elohim. So tomorrow will be another day. I know what I have is today. And today I have the peace of his Yom Kippur. Gemar Chatima Tova.